Hey guys, so I'm going to be overviewing what happened here in Monaco last weekend. So overall, it was a pretty good race. Honestly, we had Charles get his home win, which was awesome. He got his first ever home win in Monaco, which was just so cool to see him actually finally get that done. You could tell, during the race, he was saying the last couple laps, he was crying and just having like a really, really hard time containing himself and just, not letting the emotions take over. Because, it's his home race. He grew up on those streets, grew up walking down the road as a kid, taking the bus as a kid, taking it to school, and just all that kind of stuff, and everyone knew how much it meant to him. That was just so incredible to see that right after Lando winning at Miami a couple weeks ago. And I'm getting pretty excited here for Canada too. We got that in a couple days, and that weekend's going to start here off pretty soon. But overall, there's quite a bit of news going on. So in terms of, we had Checo re-signed Red Bull for 2 years, which low-key, I was kind of surprised. I knew they were going to announce things today. I think push it back because of the Ocon signing of him not going to be at Alpine anymore. So that just, I think, kind of put a wrench in their plans in terms of what they wanted to do. And it just kind of caught them off by surprise. So I'm really, really intrigued with why Red Bull re-signed him for 2. I assumed it was going to be 1 for you to have him for 25, but in terms of you're going to have him 26 with the new regulations. Now, the thing is with him re-signing, it kind of puts Carlos in a dilemma because really all that's left is Williams and Sauber, and I mean that's about it in terms of where he can end up. It won't be Aston Martin because we know we'll have Lance and Fernando. And especially too, this signing after him DNFing with the giant crash with Hulk, Magnussen, both of the Haas drivers, and that was a bad crash. That crash in general, and then the Ocon dilemma with the Alpine stuff, that happening, which was insane, that whole thing. So him getting dropped, essentially, this will be his last season with Alpine. It's just going to be an absolute disaster. But during the race, overall, Monaco was honestly pretty boring, besides for that first lap with all the crashes, with the Red Bull crash with Checo. I'm glad everyone was okay. Pretty much, finished where they started, 1 through 10, everywhere. You had Charles taking pole, Oscar getting on the podium, Carlos getting on the podium, Lando, George, Max in 6th, with Max even with the fresh tires, couldn't get past George. And then we had Lewis getting the fastest lap in 7th, Yuki and Albon. Now, Yuki's been honestly making a really good case for that car. Now, I feel like, let me know what you guys think of the Checo signing, because my only problem with Checo is you have to beat Charles and Lewis next year, both in Ferrari, and the regs aren't changing next year. So the cars will be relatively the same. If Carlos is doing this in this Ferrari, what is Lewis going to do? Like, is Lewis and Charles a better overall team if the Red Bull car doesn't improve a ton than Max and Checo? Would be my biggest fear as like a Red Bull fan, if you're a fan of Red Bull. So let me know what you think about that. And then also, in terms of the grid changing, Albon got his extension. Logan doesn't have a spot. We don't know if they're just going to put Kimi in the car or if they're going to put Kimi in Lewis's spot. With that's, kind of up in the air. You don't know if maybe Carlos will go to Merc for a year. I don't know. Nobody really knows. I have a feeling Kimi will either get that Williams or Merc seat. Like, he'll get one of the two, but we just don't know what. We don't know if they're going to see how he does in Williams first and then try to move him up, or see how Carlos does. Because personally, I want Carlos in a top 5 seat in the car. I want him in a top 3 seat. Like, I think he deserves it, but there isn't any open. So that Merc seat is the only other one open. So it's going to be a really interesting time to see what happens with Carlos. In terms of these drivers' standings, with Charles getting the win, this really changed up how these standings are looking. Charles is he's 31 points behind Max, and that's it. And then Lando's kind of closing that gap. I feel like, I'm curious to see if Lando can catch Charles. I think he can, but really, if he doesn't, you're going to have Lando, I pretty much think, would have 3rd locked in. But it's going to be, this fight for 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th is going to be really, really close. I would consider 2. I'm going to assume Max is going to win the drivers easily. I don't think it'll be a problem. I would just fully assume he's got this in the bag. There's no problem. But this 1 through 6 still could get really competitive. 7, 8, and 9, I feel like, is George, Lewis, or Fernando. It's going to be the 3 of them. We just don't necessarily know the order. And by the looks of how the season is gone, it'll probably stay like this. And then further down here, we really don't know. I mean, it can, obviously, one race can get you 5 points, and that puts you all the way from 20th to 14th, depending on where everyone else finishes. I'm glad we actually have a fight in terms of the points. But where I would be really, really, if I was Red Bull, my biggest fear is losing the Constructors' Championship. You're only up by 24 points between Ferrari. And if they have another stinker of a week, like if you have one car DNF, generally you're losing ground. They don't have much wiggle room. 24 points isn't that much. And McLaren is slowly catching too. If McLaren turns it on and is able to, continue to do well, they could be right up there too. If they were to beat both the Ferraris and Red Bull, that would take a huge, point percentage out of this lead. I feel like in terms of constructors, 4 and 5 is locked. Merc getting 4, Aston Martin getting 5. I feel like it's going to end like this. I feel like these two are fully decided already. I don't even think it's not even a question. And then the bottom 5, VCAR will definitely get 6 with how Yuki's been looking. It doesn't look like anyone's catching him. So I would say they have 6 locked. So 4, 5, and 6 are pretty much even. 7 through 10, we really don't know. Again, it's like one race, you get P9, you move a lot. So we'll kind of have to see what happens there, or they get a lot of DNFs from the cars up top. It can easily, put them right back in the points. Now, let me know if you think Ferrari has a chance to catch Red Bull, because that would be my biggest fear with them re-signing Checo for an extended period of time. You're having a Ferrari car that is clearly able to have good pace, and the car looks good. They haven't had any pit stop issues like they've had in the past. You replace Carlos with Lewis? Like, if Lewis is in his bag again and, racing how he was years ago, not to say you can't do it, but it's still there. And I just feel like that team is a great team, and McLaren's not changing. They're going to be just as, not as dominant, but they'll be just as good as they have been. I don't know. It should be an interesting weekend in terms of the point situation. It's Lance's home race. And then in terms of F1 Fantasy, so this is what I ended up with. This is what I had last week. We had Charles, Lance, Yuki, Nico, Valtteri, McLaren, and Ferrari. I'm probably going to stay with the same exact lineup over the next 3 days, unless somebody looks like terrible in free practice. I just don't really have many options to switch out. There's not really anyone like I'm dying to get rid of. I can't switch out McLaren for Red Bull. I don't have enough cap space for this. I'm still short. I got 26, and right now they're at 28 million. So I'm pretty much kind of bootstrapped in that. What I could do is get rid of Lance, and then I could get rid of McLaren, and then get Red Bull if I wanted. But then in terms of my last driver that I'd be adding, I'm kind of in, again, a loophole. I don't really have, unless I think an Alpine driver is an upgrade, or Danny, or Albon. I don't really need to switch anything, and I could just roll a transfer, which was what I'm probably going to end up doing. I just feel kind of strapped into this. There's like not much I can do. I can't get Oscar into good constructor. I could get Aston Martin. I can't even get Merc. So I'm pretty much bootstrapped into what I had. Let me know what your guys' F1 Fantasy lineups are looking like. I think I'm going to leave it like this. I guess I could take out Hulk, and I got 9 million to play with, so I could grab somebody like Danny Rick and run it like this. But other than that, I want to keep Valtteri just in terms of increase of value. Same thing with Lance, with it being his home race. So he's probably the only one I would even questionably move. So let me know, though, if there's anyone, what your guys' fantasy lineups are looking like, who you guys have for predictions for the podium here in Canada. I'm going to say a little bit of a wild thing here. I think Oscar might win the Canadian Grand Prix. I don't know why. I just kind of have a weird feeling about it. Literally no reason at all. But in terms of podium, say Oscar doesn't win. I'd say podium, we got Max, probably Charles, and one of the McLaren boys. I don't know which one. I've also heard people say Lewis might pull it out this weekend, so in terms of podium, we'll just kind of have to see. I don't know, though. Right now, I'm kind of all up in the air. So let me know your predictions for the podium for Canada here. Also, how many groundhogs are we going to see? Are we going to see more than 1, 2, 3, maybe 4? Because it seems to be every single year there's some sort of groundhog, and it always happens. So let me know those podium predictions down below and your favorite moment from Monaco this year. Overall, though, I'm really happy with how the season's been. We've had, some great races, some great firsts. Lando winning his first race, Charles winning in Monaco, the constructors being close, the drivers being semi-close. It's the closest it's been in the last couple years, and that's all I can ask for. So, we just got a lot of drama, too, with everyone leaving. And the DTS stuff, they were there with Alpine over last weekend, so that in itself is going to make that crazy. It's going to be insane. So let me know, though, your predictions for the podium here in Canada this weekend, guys. Peace.